Okay, today I want to talk about white balance in Blender and specifically how we can do this with our baked textures. Um, Explain white balance. I've got a image here which is exactly the same image taken with a camera, it's not a 3D, but it's been processed in three different ways, and we can see there is a definite color difference between them. Um, a cold white and a natural and a warm white. Okay, um, this can happen in the camera when the white balance isn't set correctly. It is possible to fix it afterwards in Photoshop or Lightroom or whatever, um, which is fine. Every photographer does it. Um, but we get the same problems in Blender. So anyway, what we're talking about here is a cold white, a neutral white, and a warm white. Now these numbers down here, don't worry about them too much yet. We will be getting more into these kind of color temperature numbers in a later class when we do something more on lamps. Okay, so how does a photographer fix this? Basically what they do, if we look at this image here, is they will take a sample shot with a known color in it, a known value, this thing, which they call a gray card. Okay, this gray card then gives them a reference so they can fix all photos after taken in the same scene, the same time, the same shoot, using this as a reference to fix the rest of the photographs. And we can do the same in Blender. That incidentally is called a gray card. So let's have a look at our Blender here. I've come back to our old HDR scene. The reason I've done that is because HDRs inherently have a problem. Let me just bring up the HDR image that's in use here. HDRs tend to cast a color over your scene. Now if you look at this HDR image, there are a lot of like pinks in it. It's very heavy on that respect. It's obviously a sunset type of scene. We can see the sunset in here, and it's putting these purplish pinks all across everything. So if we come back and look at our rendered view here, this comes across. Let me just bring up the node editor. Where is it? There we go. Okay, if we look at the material we used on Suzanne, the color of it here, this is looking a lot kind of pinker, a lot purplish pinker. It's nearer this end of colors than pure white. And in fact, if we look down on our color grid down below, these whites also look pink around the letters here. So obviously we've got something here that needs correcting. Let me go into edit mode here, and I've already got Suzanne and I've unwrapped her. So if I just tab into edit mode, you can see I've got the seams marked and everything. And if I go into an image editor here, well actually let me just pull one across. Image editor. Let's do a new one. Okay, if I select everything on Suzanne, you see I've got her all nicely unwrapped. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to bake this texture, and then we're going to do some color correction and look at the difference. Right, so I've got this new texture here, which is just a simple 1024 called Untitled. Maybe I should change that to Baked. Right, so if I add an image to my material over here, texture and image texture, select the baked, and I come ahead and bake this, we'll see what the result is. So I'll bake this, and I'll pause the video while we're baking. Okay. Okay, so that's baked. Let me just tab into edit into object mode here. Let's go full screen on this. So we can see we baked our texture. I left an alpha on it. I shouldn't have, but that's okay. We can fix that later. We can see, but we have got this kind of purplish, pinkish tint all over the texture, and that's coming from the HDRI as we discussed earlier. So what can we do to fix this? Well, we can set up a system to measure known values, such as the grey card that's used in photography. So to do that, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a camera, because what I need to do is I need to take a picture from the render from this kind of view with those known values on it. So I'm going to set up a camera. So Shift A, I'm going to add a camera, and then I'm going to press Control Alt and 0 to make that camera in where my view was. Now I can move this across a bit, so if I GX, kind of square it up where I want it to. Okay, so if I was to do an F12 render here, so I'll just press F12, it'll render out this image. And this image we've already seen has got this same pinky purpley color cast across it, which we're trying to get rid of. Okay, so if I come back into my 3D view, I've got my camera. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to add two planes, and we're going to use them not as a grey card, but as a black card and a white card, something we can measure from. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to Shift A to add the first plane, and immediately I'm going to align it to view. Okay, so this will be absolutely perpendicular to the camera. So let me grab it. Okay, probably scale it down a bit. We don't need it that big. Okay, and what I've done here is this plane is slightly behind my my scene, my objects, which is fine. You want them as near to the objects as you can get them, looking directly at the camera, because you want them to catch the same light that the objects are catching. So I'm just going to duplicate this. So Shift D on the X-axis and bring this across. Okay, so now I've got two. So if I select the first object, add a new material, and I'll make this material completely black. So that'll be a black card. Okay, then I select the second, add a new material, and I'm going to leave this as white. So if I go into a rendered view here now, you see we've got a black and white, but I hope you can see it on the video. This white isn't pure white. It has got this kind of purplish pink cast on it, which we're going to get rid of. Alright, so let's come back into a solid view here. So we've got this and our camera set up, and what we need to do here is make a render from this. Okay, so we got a physical image to measure from. So I'll press F12 and we'll do this render. Shouldn't take too long. We're only working on 128 samples, but you know, it's fine. Alright, there we go. Right, so now we're going to go back to a tool that we used when we were talking about transparencies, and that is the compositor. Okay, so we're in the shader node section at the moment. Let me turn this. No, I'll leave that on the render slot for the minute, and we'll come across to the compositor. Okay, we'll use nodes and use backdrop. Okay, you see we got this image as the render layers in the compositor, but we want to change this composite. We want to get rid of it actually, and we want to add the viewer output. Okay, and then we can just plug the image into the image, and we can see this behind us. Now what we want to do is we want to be able to measure and set the black level and the white level, and we can do that with an RGB curve. It's under color RGB curves. If we drop that in the middle, nothing happens, but if we look at this RGB curve at the bottom, we've got the image which we're feeding into. We can adjust curves manually, which, you know, if we were doing some color correction or something like that, we might want to do, and goes out to the viewer node. However, we do have a black level and a white level. We've got nothing to feed into them, so we can use these colors. So let's bring up the color picker, the eyedropper, and we'll pick up this black level here. Okay. Now, nothing will have happened here. It's still set at 0 because this actually come out as absolutely black. Okay. But if we do it with the white, default is 1. If we use the color picker, pick up this white value, okay, you see our values have changed here, and we can see we certainly got more red than anything else in this white. So it's not actually a pure white. If it's a pure white, these would all be the same number, or give or take very, very small difference, and round about the 1 mark. Right. However, now if we look, let's tidy this up a bit for a second. Let's grab all these and move them that way a little. If we look, we can see a distinct difference between our rendered image and our color corrected image. This color here is looking more natural, more like the material that we used, which was let's grab it, that one there, this color. So let's bring that back to the image editor so we see this. So it's more like this color there. It's more natural looking. Right, okay. Let me bring back the nodes. Right, so what we have there is we have our setup for the color correction. Let's remove the backdrop so it's kind of easier to see. So if I come back to our baked Suzanne here, okay, we can feed this through the same process. Okay, we don't want the rendered layers, we want an image. So Shift A, input image, and we'll drop that in. Let's get rid of this node here and connect it into the image there. If we open our baked texture, okay, this image will be fed through and out to the viewer node. So if we look at the backdrop here, we can see the difference between the two images. We're getting rid of this strong pink purplish hue. Okay, so we've got this image here and we run it through our nodes. We can come back down to the viewer node here and we can see how our image is going to be. And quite simply, we can save that image. So save as image. Let's put it on my desktop and I'll call it Baked Suzanne. Let's get rid of the alpha. Right, okay, so now if I open up my desktop Baked Suzanne image, there it is. There you can see we have got the white balance corrected image. And we can do this for every texture in our scene. We can adjust the white balance and get it more natural. And if we do that using this reference image, here we're using the same values on all of it, the values we set for the black and white here. Okay, so all the images will be corrected in the same way and will work together in the same way. So that's how we can correct the white balance on baked textures.